Hi everybody, it's Claire back with another art journal video, and in this one I am playing with one of Natalie May's collage papers. I do have some of these available to buy on my website, and they are very popular. They have been selling out really well. So this one is one of the Autumn Girls, and you can see that I'm working on a page in the small craft journal where I've kind of cut a little bit out. Sometimes I like to sort of chop pieces off my pages. This sounds a bit weird. Just altering the shape of the page, I think, can create that extra added interest. And you can always sort of stick the bits on that you've cut off somewhere else as well. So as always, when I use a collage paper like this, I take my starting point, my inspiration from the colours that are already there. And I look at the paints that I've got and try and find one that will match as closely as possible. So here I'm using Amsterdam acrylic, and it is the paint called Pyrrole Red. It's quite a bright red, and using that as my starting point for this page, and just overlapping that paint onto the page and starting to build up some colour. Then I'm using permanent red violet light from Amsterdam acrylic as well, and just using my blending tool to just get a bit of colour onto my page. So the reason I'm using the blending tool will just be because that was what was next to me on the desk. There is no sort of deep and meaningful reason apart from that. Then I'm using Caput Mortem Violet from Amsterdam acrylic, and this is one of Natalie May's stencils as well. I think it's called something like script text or something like that, but I just love anything that's got text on it is just fabulous. So I think this is another Amsterdam acrylic paint. This is sienna, raw sienna. I went with this because of the craft colour. I thought it would kind of just introduce a bit more craft colour onto the colours that I've just added. And you can see here I'm just building up the layers really of interest colour and paint that's on the page, and just trying to make that collage paper feel like it's part of the journal. So then I've just added the whites of the eyes in. So now I am creating a piece of card with a complementary colour onto the colour that is mostly on the page, which is red. So I've gone for green, using lime from Dina Wakley, and this is so I can cut some little circles out. I've got a circle punch from EK. I can't remember, I think it is just EK. Yeah, that one there, you can see. I've also stenciled some more circles onto that using Evergreen, which is from Dina Wakley. So I'm going to use these little dots just to add some pops of colour onto the page, and you can see I'm using my little tweezers to help me stick those in place, because some of these are quite small and fiddly, and when you're doing something like this, if you're not careful, you can end up with them stuck all over your fingers rather than in your journal. So although you might be watching this and thinking, goodness me, playing with tweezers, that's far too much faffing, this is actually the easiest way to do it, to not end up with circles stuck about your person. I do actually keep that green bit of card with all the circles punched out of it as well, because that makes fabulous collage fodder. So here I was just sorting through and finding some of the smaller ones, because they're nice to sort of help layer those different shapes and sizes onto the page. So now I'm going to start thinking about adding more mark making and some contrast onto my page. So I'm going to do this using dots as always. There I was just wondering about adding some cheeks onto her. I don't think I did in the end, I'm not sure. Yeah, rubbing those away. Just having a think, but will it work? So this is my little dotty stamp from Funky Fossil. So I am just adding some dots around where I've stuck those little green circles, and you can see how nicely those green circles pop against the rest of the colours on the page. They work really well. as a nice contrast. So here I thought I would just use, it's just a black gel pen, and I'm just drawing some sketchy circle lines around those circles that I've stuck on to the page. And then I'm going in and drawing some more circles on there as well. So then I'm using my heartfelt stamp, which was from one of my Funky Fossil releases, and stamping that onto white card. I'm going to be sticking this onto my page, obviously going to be cutting some of the hearts out. They're going to work quite well as a contrast with the rest of the page, because there's not really any white on there at the minute, apart from the whites on her eyes. So the white of the card will be a really great contrast and just add that extra pop. I don't think I used many of these, just a few, but obviously the card that's been stamped on will be saved to be used another time. So then I'm just going to add some more white dots as well. So just working with that contrast. We've got those white hearts on there, just a little bit of white just to help those. It just kind of helps to start to pull the page together, really. You're adding those elements on. You've got a bit of contrast as well, using the complementary colour green with the rest of it. And then the pops of black and white also help to add that contrast onto the page as well. And then I'm using the white Posca pen and starting to add my words onto the page too. Decided to go for white rather than black because I felt that it would work really nicely with the page. It really pops, doesn't it, doing it in white? And it's not often that I write my words in white. Usually I reach for black, but I really did like how that looked. Now, you will notice that some of those letters have disappeared a little bit. So that's because those are places where there isn't much acrylic paint on the page, which is acting a bit like a gesso would. So I'm just having to go back in and just add another layer of pen over the top, just to make it a little bit darker in those places where it's sunk into the page. So in a situation like this, you know, if you'd added a layer of clear gesso on your page all over, then this wouldn't have happened. Even if your paint was like mine and you've got some spaces where there isn't any paint or pattern, having that gesso there would act as that barrier, which would kind of prep your page ready and would mean that your pen or paint wouldn't kind of disappear. So that's a reason really for using gesso in a situation like this. But if you haven't used gesso and this happens, just dry your page and go in for a second or third layer and it will sort itself out. If it's something that bothers you, you can see I've gone in, I think this is the third time really, because I wanted that quote to really pop, wanted it to really stand out. And then finally, just using that black gel pen, I've gone in and added a drop shadow to those letters, taking my time doing it because it is really easy to rush it and get it wrong. So just do it nice and steady. And then that just helps to pop those letters. Oh, I've not done a drop shadow. I've actually gone round each letter. I've outlined it. Sorry, I thought it was a drop shadow. It's not at all. So yeah, even so, it's important to take your time. And that just pops those out a little bit more from the background. So here we go, here's the finished page using one of Natalie May's Collage Girls, Autumn Girls, creating that blended feel with the collage paper on the page, so kind of making it feel like it was there all along. So I hope you found some inspiration and learned a little bit about using contrast to make your page really pop. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.